about key social networking channels and why they're important in the business perspective. But this week we want to get into something which is a follow-up of what we've done last week, and it's the idea of building that social presence. Now, there's so many ways of doing it, but we'll start thinking about the first from the profiles you build online, whether that's for business or personal, to the actual building a more strategic development when it comes to the content. So, first things first, whatever you do in life, not just social media, you need to know what's your aim. What are you trying to get to? Now that's the first thing you need to think about. And so, we'll look at several channels and several reasons why businesses go to social media. And trust me, not all of them are interested to sell. There'll be, most of them would really like to increase their sales, but they're not all of them. This next one is improve digital footprint. Now, the digital footprint is pretty much the presence that you're building online in social media channels. We'll look at some of the examples and how this is affecting the way we do sort of engagement online in social media. Then we'll look at the approach where once you build up that digital footprint, what do you need to do next? And businesses need to follow different models to be able to do a good job, okay? And that means to have a good approach to engage, listen, and of course listen some more to make sure that there is that two-way conversation rather than a just one-way approach. Then we'll look at the viral content. Now, some people do really, some companies do a good job to make sure that they engage with others by providing valid content. But then there are some companies and there are some users that achieve this great success by creating viral piece of content. Okay? Now you know the part of your second piece of work is actually creating a viral content, viral video. Now, viral video, there are so many reasons for doing it. But one reason is sometimes that's part of your marketing plan, as part of your marketing strategy to get things going and to reach out to as many people as possible. Now we'll look at several examples, but sometimes companies themselves pay loads of money to create these viral pieces of content. Sometimes they're quite successful, sometimes they're not. But then you've got just individuals from around the world who've got some really cool ideas. They go ahead and build these viral piece of content, because we know huge amount of content gets published, but very tiny piece of content, that very tiny part goes viral from all the things that are published online. Then of course your weekly research task, and that is something that will close the session for today. That's more or less what we're going to cover today. Now, the power of social networks. According to the research that we've done and some of the work that continuously we do around social networks, is that social connections lead to social relationships, and then of course that is the future business growth. That is how more or less we see it, and that's how in a way lots of research that we're doing prove kind of gives us that direction. And in a way, the reason for that is that if you're building a social presence online, but you've got no connections, which means you've got no members, no people, no one following you, that is pretty useless, right? So as much as building up a presence, one needs to think about building those connections. And connections do matter. Then in addition to that, once you build up those connections, what do? You continue to engage and build relationships. Because relationships then turn those opportunities over to you when they come along, right? In addition to that, they give you an opportunity to build up a future of your business. Or in a way, if you've got your personal individual business that you're doing, that can still bring some opportunities or projects that you might get involved with. So in a way, these are three elements that you need to think about when you think about the power of social networks. The social networks help you with these three key things all the time. But of course, for every part of it, there needs to be a plan and an idea about how one needs to go about doing it. Now, why this is important. And why do we need to know what we're doing with social networking? We need to firstly say what? To understand what is the aim, what is that we're trying to get out of it. So that needs to be part of your plan when you think about creating a viral piece of content as well. Or in general, creating your social media strategy or your social media plan. You need to know from the day one, what is it you're trying to get out of it. Now, there are some businesses say, we only want to promote our blog. That's what we want to do. Promote our blog because our blog is really important. We publish lots of content. We want our customers to engage with us. So everything we do is related to our blog posts, right? Some businesses do something else. What they do is actually they start to think about promoting other types of channels as well. Some of them promote things like Facebook fan page. And so those things work quite well when it comes to promoting an overall strategy to the business. But then there are companies who say all we want is more traffic into our website. Because when we get more traffic in our website, we can have an opportunity to sell something to these people that come. Now, bringing traffic, whether that's in store or online, is expensive. Companies do it different ways. Companies pay advertising. They can do online advertising, they do face-to-face advertising, they do banner ads, they do newspaper advertising, they do all sorts of things. They are really, really expensive. Whereas social media, it's not free. Lots of people think that social media is free and they actually have the wrong approach because the time you're spending to build that presence, build that strategy, engage with customers, that time costs, right? Because what you're doing, you're getting people from other tasks that they've got to do within the company to deal with social media. So that's not free. So when you think about social media, don't just think, wow, this is all free, it's all good. No, it's not. But it's a lot cheaper than any other platform, any other channel that you could be using. Because if you've got a really clever plan in place to build a social media strategy, but also run it, then you're very likely to be quite efficient. Whereas with other channels, we all know how expensive they are. We all know how much a billboard costs in one of the places in Hatfield or even London, right? So, there are some companies who say, we just want to build communities. We want to build communities around our brand. That's what we want to do. Our aim is to build a community around our brand. At the moment, we're not interested to sell. Which is quite clever, because when you build a community, when you're being useful, then on the day when you start to sell something, people wouldn't mind that. They would actually come along to buy from you. So you know that local guy that's at that local shop near to your home that guides you on all sorts of things. Where do you get your I don't know, shopping? Where do you get this? Where do you get direction to that place, and so on and so forth. That guy has built up a connection with you. That guy has built up the relationship with you. Now, if you need something, would you go to another store, to another shop, or you would go to his shop? Of course you would go to his shop, because he has already built up a relationship with you. Now, his aim wasn't to sell you anything. He was just being useful. And it's the same goes with every other business. Now, sometimes businesses online try to do that, is try to say, let's just try and be useful first. Because when you're useful first, opportunities will come along. And many times in your lives, and that will happen again in the near future, you just help people because you're genuinely interested to help. You're not thinking money, you're not thinking of cash, ka-ching, ka-ching. You're just thinking of helping. And then suddenly, something came out from nowhere. You didn't even expect it. A huge opportunity, and you said, where did that come from? Because you were trying to be useful in the first place. And social media is no different. You were useful to the guy that was getting out of the bus. Or a guy that was getting out of the train. And suddenly you ended up talking to him, and suddenly you realized that he runs a huge business in Hertfordshire. And suddenly he wants to see you, and suddenly he wants to get to know you, and then boom, he wants to offer you a job. Or he wants to open a business with you, or anything else. But that just happened because you got one thing right. You were there just trying to be helpful for that time when the help was needed. And social media is that kind of approach. If you're showing that you're helpful, and if you're building community around that, then one day, boom, you're either going to get opportunities from them, or you might say, well, by the way, thanks for following, guys. We talked about, I don't know, e-commerce and digital in the last 3-4 years with each other. We've decided to work very hard to write a book. So everything we've been talking about in the last 3-4 years, we've developed a book which is based on research, this is your blah, blah, blah. And we would like you to get a 10% discount if you're willing to buy it. Now, nobody would find that as a spammy message because you've already built up that relationship. And that's why we said social connections drive social relationship, and that social relationship drives future growth. It's very, very simple. Now, the other thing is, of course, sometimes you might just want to promote profiles. You've got really good profiles on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and so on, whether they are business profiles or personal. All you're trying to do is to promote those profiles. Now, you've noticed that lots of people that share YouTube channels and then Twitter. Well, in a way, they think of sharing the video, but they do a lot more to it. They're actually promoting their own YouTube channel. If I share something from my YouTube channel, if I share a video, I'm not only sharing that video, but I'm actually in a way promoting my own channel. So that's another approach that can be used when it comes to identifying the aim for the business. Now, the aim is absolutely essential. Otherwise, it's like getting into the car and just driving, but you have no idea where you're going. That's why aims and objectives are absolutely essential. And especially with social, because social is a huge thing. And you can get lost very quickly, very fast. So you've got to be absolutely clear. What is it you're trying to get out of it? And that needs to be part of your plan if you end up working for a company, or if you end up working for someone who says, look, you're a graduate, we hired you, we like you, boom, this is social media that we want you to deal with. We don't understand any of this stuff. We want you to come along and tell us what do we need to do. And the first question that you should ask would be something like this. What is that you're trying to get out of social? Let's just make things clear. And then from that moment, you move on to the next step. And building up an actual plan to deal with it. Now, I like this a lot. Social networks are indeed a halfway digital identity and activity. So, social networks are a connection in a way to everything else you do online. And in addition to that, the most amazing thing is that now you can do that in a very efficient and very fast way if you knew what you were doing. So, keywords in here are the hub, digital identity. So everything that you do around social media is going to affect your personal brand or your business. So things like this should never happen. Okay, you should never ever be in the position where you just create a profile and then you've done absolutely nothing with it. It's much better not to have a presence at all, but to have something like this. Because that just shows, first, well, not very professional. Second, you're not sure maybe what you're doing. And third, you're not very interested on that at all. So that's worse than not having anything at all. And of course, the other part is when it comes to this is the idea that you will have something that I've highlighted there, which is a profile completion in LinkedIn, for instance. Now, as soon as you have managed to create a profile, then you completed the profile with all information about education, work, everything else. LinkedIn will say, now we'll index your profile, which means we'll share your profile with other people. But unless it's complete, we won't do that. And they don't do that. Because simply they will not want to put you out in the market, but you're not ready for it. So they'll make absolutely sure that if your profile is fully up to date, it will be integrated in their own algorithms. And when somebody searches for e-commerce, digital, or something like that, I'll come along. Because I'll build up and I'll make sure that my profile is up to date. Now that goes the same with Twitter. I had a very nice tweet from one of our students who said, sign up for Twitter, and then he said, hello teacher, I'm on Twitter now. Okay, that's really good. But then he didn't really update his profile photo in there, and there was just this nice, cool white X in there. Okay? Well, that's something that shouldn't happen. Of course, it's the same with Facebook, but really, Facebook is very unlikely because as soon as we create a profile, the first thing we're going to do is picture. Picture is really important there. All of this leads to something quite interesting. And that is what I call online engagement journey. Now, online engagement journey is really important because there's several steps in there, really crucial steps. The first one, before you say anything, before you do anything, what is the first thing you do in an everyday life? You listen. That's the first thing you do. It's a basic thing. You listen before you do anything. In fact, you listen, and if you've got some good listening skills, then you're really going to be quite good at connecting people, right? Have you noticed when you join in a group, you're not saying anything. You're just listening, but you're listening very actively. You're really listening to get what they're talking about. After a point, people are going to say, oh, by the way, what's your name? They will want to connect with you because you've decided to listen to what they have to say. Now, that's really important. That's why we give them 2 years. Or not, yeah? We've got to listen a lot more than we speak. We've got to listen twice and then speak once. Now, if you do that, connecting is going to be really easy. Because people will want to connect with you. And that's the same online. Online, you'll make sure you go out there, you listen, you follow people, you listen, you read, you listen, you read, you listen. You be very practical. You get a real feel about the industry and the things that you're trying to understand. The next thing, connecting will be a lot easier because they will know that you've been following things and you will be ready to talk about that industry or that business because you've already listened and learned a lot. Then the next bit is that study part. You study more when you've started to connect. You started to connect with people, now what? You've got to study hard. You've got to learn really hard who are these people, what do they do, and what are the things that they're mostly interested about. Once you've done this, then the next thing is what? Now that you learned and discussed and studied, then you start to improve what you're doing online because you've learned a lot. Now, I hope this process makes a lot more sense when we go through that. Then after you improved, you got feedback, you got idea, you received some insights, you received some input. The next thing you're going to do is what? Improve and then move to the publishing part. If you follow this approach, customer engagement approach, that we just presented here, this model would really, you'll be very unlikely to fail when you do social. And it's the same with business. However, this is more like a circle rather than a straight line. But we just presented it this way to make a lot more sense to you. But it's all a circle, goes around and around. You start, engage, listen, learn, improve, publish, learn, improve, listen, publish. So it's all a circle, and it never stops. And the beauty of it, it gets better and better every day. And before you realize, you'll be like, I've got, I don't know, 1,000 followers, right? And I'm doing this, and I've got some relevant followers, right? And I'll build this amount of engagement on Facebook, this amount of engagement on LinkedIn. I'm quite popular there. People contact me, people send me emails, and so on and so forth. Okay? So that is something that is quite useful. In addition to that, what we need to do next is through a different model which we developed as a result of our research and the work that we've done in the last 4 or 5 years. First one, how do you do? You need, once you build out that presence, once you listened, once you've learned a lot, what do you need to do? Experiment, right? You've got to experiment with it. You've got to experiment. Otherwise, you're not getting the point. Throughout the journey, there'll be a time when you listen. There'll be a time when you learn. There'll be a time when you study things. But then there is a time to act. And acting is as important as listening. Otherwise, you're just going to be there forever, doing nothing, like not getting anywhere. So, experimenting with social media is an approach that we all need to take, whether we're doing that with a brand or individual profiles. First one, we publish. Now, publishing is hard. Publishing can be expensive. Publishing content that is relevant is hard too. Lots of companies pay journalists, they pay experts, they pay engineers in the industry to make sure that they get content. Why? Because they want to provide content that is useful to their followers, whether they are on Twitter or any other social channel. So the first one, you think about content. Content needs to be interesting, funny, thought-provoking content, and as much educational as possible. Why? Because in the world we live in, we need to know about many things. As soon as you're stuck with something, what do? You go to YouTube. You're not even asking your friend anymore. You used to ask them, but you don't do that anymore. You just say, probably it's a lot quicker if I just go to YouTube, in 1 minute video, I'll know what to do with this. And in most cases, you'll be right. You'll get something out of it. The next one is, once you publish that interesting educational piece of content, what do? You make sure you track it. You make sure you track how well that thing went. And we'll learn at social networking monitoring tools that allow you to do just that. It allows you to understand which content did well, which content didn't. And what can you do about it? And when we say analyzing and tracking, that goes for different metrics. You go for Twitter, like tweets, retweets, replies, hashtags, promotion, and so on and so forth. When you move to Facebook, it'll be likes, comments, reach, and so on and so forth. And it's the same for other channels. But tracking is going to be absolutely essential. Now, we'll talk of several tools. We'll talk about mentions, Sprout Social, and so on, and other ones as well. Once you tracked, you understood what's happening, what's working and what's not. Then you start to go back and engage more, and then start to contribute, discuss, support, and keep engaging in that conversation you're in. But that will happen once we learn how well we're doing. So tracking is really important. Tracking is as important as building and developing and publishing content. And we know that content can be really hard. Have you tried to write something that is useful, like educational or quite remarkable piece of work? It's really hard, isn't it? If you haven't done so, try that. Set up a blog post, set up a Tumblr blog or something like that, and then start to write something. And you say, let me just see how I can write something useful. How I can write something that will help someone solve a problem. And that's why content in social media is like ingredients to your cooking recipe. If you do not have ingredients, you might have the best kitchen in the world. It looks fascinating, brilliant, but you won't be able to do much. So content is absolutely essential. Because content is that path to connect to people, that path to engage, that path to build those communities. Once you've done that, then the next process is what? Assess how well this whole process has gone. How well you've done with conversations, with discussions, with ideas, and so on and so forth. Now this is when lots of new ideas come handy. This is when new ideas for products, new ideas for development of other services, new ideas for improvement of the things that you've done. So there are several things that you can do in that part. But that is absolutely essential in the end to say, okay, stop for a second. We created those profiles, we've engaged, we've listened, we've made sure that we've got those communities built up, we track, we publish some more. But let's just stop for a second and see what is exactly this whole thing means to us. And you can do that only by making sure that you use the data that you got from tracking software or tools. Now, some of the things to avoid, and everybody hates them, and this is according to some of the research we've done as well. Now, first things first, it becomes very clear that somebody without having an interest to sell you, it's all an interest to help you out, all they're trying to do is sell you. Now, I go to conferences, I go to places all the time, sometimes business meetings, sometimes project conferences and so on. And then you connect with people. So they start to send me things and so on and so forth. But I picked up some of those that are just a big no-no when it comes to social. Well, the first one is, follow where we don't follow. Thanks for reaching out. Please DM your email and we'll be in contact. I mean, who are you to have someone's email? You've done nothing. You've done absolutely nothing. Now, email is a very, very important part of your digital identity, isn't it? You're not just going to give emails away, right? You'll give emails away once you've built up that trust. Now, this is something that lots of brands do from time to time, but it's a big no-no. RT, if you love our product, RT means retweet. RT, retweet what? There's nothing in there. What to retweet? What to say? So it's almost like an incomplete thing. First, it's very self-promotional kind of thing, and second is empty, it's weak, there's got nothing in there. Retweet this and you win an iPad. Well, I'm sure you've seen this all the time. Just so we can reach as many people as possible. But then, there's no link, there's no nothing. What's, where, how? Where do I know what I'm retweeting, what I'm doing? What is this whole thing, right? Then, I don't know if you can see them now. So, as I was saying to you earlier, when I connect with people, when I go abroad, of course, one thing that happens is, the idea is that people will try and sell you things all the time. And there's so many people I'm connected with, we started following each other without engaging in any type of conversation on Twitter. The next thing they say, oh, if you need some guy about social media, something like that, give us a call. Well, we haven't really exchanged much conversation. We just exchanged maybe some Twitter handles or something like that, but we haven't done much. So you just try to sell me without doing anything? Of course not. You've got to give me something. For me, first of all, the quality. Second, to know that you understand what you're doing. And then third, for that thing to be useful to you. And once you've done these three things right, then you might offer me something and I wouldn't mind. Any questions so far? This one is powerful and it needs to be in your head. Relationships are the new currency of social economy. If you do not have those connections, and if you haven't built up relationships online, you haven't got a business, right? Now, it's really strong comment, really strong statement to say that. But the direction we're moving in, that is more true every single day. If you have, excuse me, a loyal customer base, and they're engaging with you online, engaging with you social, they're engaging with Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and so on, and you making sure you're selling them, you're giving them discounts or all sorts of things, right? And then suddenly, your factory burns down. You're not producing anymore. Or whoever's supplying you with things in China or somewhere else, his factory has gone down and you just don't have any more products to sell. What's going to happen? You can probably find, if you're able to start building up something and start selling up and offering those products, those customer base and those guys will come back to you and buy from you, not a problem. Because you've built up a relationship with them. But if you've got the best factory in the world, you've got the best people in the world, but you've got no relationships and no customer base, it actually means nothing. But if you have relationships, those people will come with you wherever you go. You know when people get married, right? What are those famous, popular words for, what do we say? What are those popular words that people say when they get married? We'll share whatever happens to us, for worse or good or everything else, right? We're in this together. And it's the same thing when you build up relationships with business and customers. They will be with you if you have tough times in the business. They won't let you if you build up a strong relationship with them. And there are several businesses who go through that. Zappos, for instance, is a very successful company in the US for selling shoes online. It's one of the largest ones. Really huge company, really successful. It was purchased by Amazon. I think it was just over $2 billion. It was, I think, around 2007, 2008, something like that. But there was a time when they had huge problems with their warehouses, yeah? And 2 or 3 trucks just went off the road, and then most of those shoes that were in there got destroyed. Then the warehouse had deep problems with IT and tracking and everything else. So for more than 4 or 5 days, the store was pretty much down. They were not able to sell anything. They did let customers down, and they were in big trouble. You know what happened? Customers were so much understandable of actually what happened, simply because they knew that the relationship they built up with Zappos, it wasn't just a one-time transaction. It was like a long one. And so customers, in a way, did some of the work on the social media by going out and telling others, saying, you've got to be understandable, because what has happened now is what's outside their control. And so we need to be understandable, and then let the guys do the work, and when they're ready to be up, selling new things. So sometimes customers go and fight for you. But they will only do that if you build up a relationship with them. And that relationship is tight. And that relationship is enabled with the help of social networks. There are 2 things when it comes to content. Remarkable content increases and drives greater reputation online. If you've got remarkable content, and if you keep providing greater remarkable content, automatically you'll have a greater reputation, much better reputation online. Because whether you're a business or personal profile, you're building that, you'll make sure that most of the things that you're providing is going to be useful to people, and that will help you with the reputation. In your groups of friends, in your communities, there's one guy who is good with cars, right? He understands everything with cars. And everybody knows within that group of friends that Chris is really good. He knows inside out. You know, the power, the engine, the design, the interior, everything else. All you need to know about a car, you can call Chris and he'll do it. Right? But how did that happen? That didn't just happen in 24 hours. Right? Chris has been really understanding and then in a way sharing that knowledge with others. So this way he built up his name for himself. And so when people talk about cars, they think, Chris, this guy, this measuring guy, knows everything you need to know. But he's done something. He went out, he listened, he read, he studied, and then he published, and he was useful to everybody else. And at some point, he achieved an absolutely fantastic reputation online. Which meant that's business or anything else you'd like to do around that subject area. Now, let's try and go through the viral content. Now, before we talk about viral content, I think the best thing to do is if I showed you shortly some of the most successful viral videos and hits in YouTube. You've seen many of them. We'll look at some of these quickly and then we'll start to comment and analyzing them. Turn off the lights.
My name is Boxy.
Leave Britney Spears alone right now! Come back.
Still awake? Yeah? Good. Okay, now let's get into something and talk about these viral types of content. Now, viral is the content that spreads as fast as a flu, as a virus, or anything like that. And so, most of the case, they're like funny things that get people to talk about them, share them, and so on. But sometimes they're controversial, and they give you that feel and urge to share. Okay? But let's move into some of the work that other people have done around viral piece of work. Now, Professor Berger and Milkman, they talk about they pretty much kind of study around idea about why content takes on, why content gets so popular. So remember, there's a very tiny bit of content that goes viral. How does that happen? Why is that the case? So they have then done a study of something they called social transmission process, where they pretty much organized and analyzed so many newspapers, articles that got shared online and other things, just to come up with some key elements. And we'll share with them some of those key things. And as I said, they've studied over 3 months a total of 7,000 articles. So what do you think makes the content go viral? Well, first things first, the key is the level of excitement, whether that's a positive or negative. That's the first thing that came out of research. The next one is, the key is the level of course, making sure that the other amusement into that content is there. But of course, according to research, you don't see that on the top line. Positive content is more viral than negative content. That's what the research shows. Now, negative content gets shared, like a bad tweet about poor service of your local provider, or something like that, or something really, really bad in terms of customer service. Negative content that inspires normally anger and anxiety, that, according to the research they've done, that showed as well the reason for the content to go out. Something which was quite interesting that came out of research, which other people didn't talk about, was secrecy. Now, secrecy helps viral content spread even more. According to this research, if I tell you all that there is this special place in London where nobody can go in, like they do fantastic food, but if you mention my name and don't tell anybody else, they'll let you in. Now, automatically, as soon as I've asked you to keep this as a secret, you think you've got something that nobody else has. You feel better about it. I know something and nobody else knows. But then at some point you start to share that secret with other people and say, you know, I shouldn't be really talking to you about this, but there's a really cool thing in there. And if you mention this guy's name, you're going to go in. So according to research, that secrecy drives that traffic even more, drives that engagement even more. In addition to that, people share hoping to raise social standing, right? They really share to look good in front of their friends, to look good in front of their families and so on. And also sometimes to help other people because they find it useful. That happens a lot. You find a really cool video, the first thing you think about is say, I'm going to send it to my friends because they love these kind of things with cars. When I find this very educational video content around social media, I'm sending it to my classmates because we're doing a social networking module together. Now, how can you create a content that fascinates? Let's look at some of the key things. Passion triggers fast connections with others and inspires relationship with customers. So if you write something, it needs to come from within you. It can't be fake. It can't be just something you're trying to do. It has to be absolutely real. The next one is, alarm is an instinct that we all have to keep things alive, or keep things going. Mystique is also something that gets the content to to be fascinating and maybe go viral. Power, people want power. So if it's something around power, something that gets people to think about it, yeah. Prestige is all about feeling good and feeling special. But also trust comes through familiarity and predictability as well. Now, we talked about some examples. Charlie bit my finger, right? We're not going to go into this video because we've seen a part of it. So why do these things, this content go viral? Well, things first. 788 million views. It's one of the most successful commercial YouTube viral content that was published. One of the most successful ones. Now, this positive content provides amusement. People share it. Now, of course, because it's made them smile and think, oh, this is cute, right? Charlie's older brother, Harry, reacts cutely to the pain Charlie inflicts upon him. In fact, we find it funny that his brother hurts him, right? So, these are some of the reasons why this piece of content went viral. Secondly, there is a trust, it is safe, and that can be enjoyed by all and cannot possibly offend anyone. Now, if you search for this thing online, on Google, 87,000 results you get for this type of video. The interesting part of this is that when you build a viral piece of content, it's not that you getting quite successful and popular, but actually providing a platform within YouTube for other people to do the same thing. Now, Charlie bit my finger, you've got Suarez bitting my finger, and you've got all sorts of other things around that same video. So you're not just building something of your own, but actually getting other people to build other things. Now, they build up an application for it, okay? Their parents earn just about $500,000 and probably even more by now from the revenues from YouTube as well as press and TV appearances. So that single thing alone. Now, how to increase the virality of your content? You need to identify trending topics, real-time search engines, Collector, OneReel, Google, and other things, so Google Alerts help you do that. Now, if you're wondering what is your topic for the next week, well, it is this. You've got to make an attempt, this one, not submitting your work for the coursework because you'll do that later on. You need to start creating something, but before you do that, you need to go through some of these things. You need to start planning, understand who your audience is for that viral piece of work. You cannot offend anyone. Rule number one, you can't offend anyone. And then you need to understand where your customer hang out, so which channel you're targeting. Define types of messages you want to share with others. Establish types of content your message will trigger. Make your content, publish and share, measure some more. Okay? So we need to start doing this, and that's going to be for the next week's discussion. Next week, you can either talk to us about what you've done, or show us that you're publishing something, or tell us the outcome of that piece of content that you wanted to go viral. Okay? And then we'll look at views and so on. I would suggest going for YouTube videos because that's going to be part of your second assignment as well. So it does make sense. So we'll start practicing with things before you actually do the real group work and the real viral video. Okay? And don't forget to have fun. Thank you very much.